Paul Pogba was once the most expensive footballer in the world. Now his career looks over, after he failed a doping test which led to him being banned from football. It's so bad, he's not actually in Football Manager 2024. So today we're turning back the clock and putting a 17-year-old Pogba back at his first professional football club in France,
Le Havre.
Without wanting to sound too much like a Joey Barton Marseille press conference.
Yesterday I make one tackle and all everybody speak about is this tackle. Nobody speaks about...
I will offend all of France if I keep saying Le Havre rather than Le Havre. From here, we'll simulate his career to see if he can eclipse the 8 major trophies he won in real life. I've copied his attributes from his Football Manager 2012 profile, which gives him a current ability score of 102 out of 200. That makes him good enough to be an average League 2 player. But I've given him a generous potential ability of 190 out of 200, which, if he reaches, would put him a few steps behind Messi and Ronaldo at their peaks. Surprisingly, Paul started 8 times and made 12 substitute appearances in Season 1 in Ligue 1, which has helped his current ability shoot up to 122. As you can see, his attributes have had a nice little increase. He's used most often in the attacking midfield, but had his best ratings in the defensive midfield. However, despite coming in 12th place, Le Havre only finished 1 point above the relegation zone in one of the tightest battles I've ever seen. And I suspect in Season 2, we'll see Paul become a first team regular, as he's now the 8th best player at the club based on current ability. And sure enough, in Season 2, he made 32 league starts, contributing to 8 goals and improving his current ability to 143. I think looking at him now, a team in a European competition may be taking a look at him, especially as Le Havre are in the bottom half of the table again. This season, Paul played exclusively as an attacking midfielder, and I'm sure there are plenty of clubs out there who would love to sign him. But Paul decides to stay put and has another full season at Le Havre, playing every single league game. But he has now requested a transfer away from the club and is listed on the market for 72 million. At 153 current ability, it's a lot of money, but I think if he can reach that potential, it might be a bargain in the long run. He's also developed 2 player traits. Tries killer balls often, which suits his 16 vision and 15 passing, and he likes to round the keeper, which is good because his finishing is only 9 and it's pretty low, but his dribbling is only 13, so it's not going to be effective all the time. And when you consider that he's underperformed his XG massively, it looks like it's not working out for him. And if clubs are going to pay £72 million for him, they might want to have a more complete player. I don't know if he's going to move away this summer, especially as Le Havre have finished in 6th place in the league, securing Europa League football for next season. Paul also made his first international cap for France aged 20 against Uruguay, which sets him off on a career where I think he'll have 100 caps for France. He played in the 2026 World Cup, where Portugal beat France in the round of 16 in extra time. So Paul ended up having a pretty quiet summer as he stayed at Le Havre for another season. But it was his best season yet, with 12 goal contributions, and is now wanted by Spurs, Bayern and Atletico Madrid, as he's transfer listed for £82 million. But he has somehow guided Le Havre to 2nd place in the table, albeit in a low point scoring season, and they're still 24 points behind PSG. The crazy part is, aside from Pogba, the players in that team based on current ability have no business being a 2nd place team, which is highlighted in the Europa League, as they just sneak into the knockout stages by coming 24th in the league phase, before getting battered by Vigo in the knockout playoff round. So maybe the 2nd place in the league this season was a fluke and Paul knows it, as it does seem like this summer is going to be the year that Paul Pogba moves on. For £91 million to AC Milan, very late in the transfer window, as he played 4 times this season for Le Havre. He's been able to further develop at Milan with some impressive attributes, bringing his current ability up to 180. However, he's been deployed as a defensive midfielder rather than the attacking midfielder he had success with at Le Havre. And you may notice he's unhappy about not winning Serie A, as AC Milan finished 25 points away from their city rivals to come 3rd. They also came 10th in the Champions League phase, before losing on penalties to Freiburg in the knockout playoff round, which is pretty poor for AC Milan. But this summer he's got his first European Championships to play in, and they lose in the second round to the Netherlands. Another poor display. Still, it wasn't quite as bad as England, who lost 4-1 to Sweden at the same stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, England will be playing 4-4-2.
But in Season 6, Paul has fulfilled his potential ability of 190, and his final form as a playmaker looked very impressive as he dominates the midfield physically. This makes him the third best player in the database behind Haaland and Mbappe, and maybe a Ballon d'Or contender in the future. Jude Bellingham has won it twice as a central midfielder, so it is possible for Paul, but he will need more than 14 goal contributions in the league to win it. But this season, Paul did win Serie A with AC Milan, the first major trophy of his career. But sadly, they did lose in the quarterfinals of the Champions League to Inter Milan. But in Season 7, they lose out to Inter by 2 points, whilst also losing to Porto in the Champions League round of 16. And because of this, it may tempt Paul to leave Milan and move to Manchester to join City, who are interested in signing him. But his valuation is set to skyrocket as he helps guide France to win the 2030 World Cup, beating England in the final. The inflated price put Man City off this past summer, meaning Pogba stays at AC Milan and has his most productive season yet with 21 goal contributions in Serie A. But that still wasn't enough to eclipse Inter Milan at the top of the table. And it's another terrible season in the Champions League, with another loss in the knockout playoff round, this time to Wolfsburg. But he did win his first major domestic cup in the Coppa Italia. Also, if you're enjoying the video, make sure you click the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 200,000 this year. Man City and Newcastle want him, but with 3 years left on his contract, he is not going to be cheap. So instead, he signs a new contract with AC Milan and has his best season yet with 25 goal contributions from the centre of midfield. In fact, in all competitions, it's 31. Combine this with his return from last season, and he may well be in a shout of winning the 2031 Ballon d'Or. In third place was Bukayo Saka, in second place was Rodrigo, and in first, we had
Badreddine Buonanni
from Nice. Big up Google Translate for the pronunciation. But I think Paul Pogba has been completely robbed. He should have won that award. And AC Milan should have won Serie A, but they missed out by a single point, as well as losing in the Champions League quarterfinals to Barcelona. So I think if he wants to win some more trophies and compete with his real life self, he needs to make a move to Manchester United, who want to sign him. They clearly love all of the player traits he's been developing over the past few seasons, where apparently he hates to play short passes. But in Season 10, he doesn't move on. He stays at AC Milan, where he continues to collect even more player traits as if they're Pokemon in a Pokedex. But actually, that turned out to be a sensible move, as he wins his second Serie A title with AC Milan and finally wins that Ballon d'Or trophy, something that he couldn't do in real life. Even though I'm pretty sure his 2031 was better than his 2032. He isn't the best player by current ability though. A 32-year-old Haaland claims a top spot as Mbappe's had a big drop-off, but he may well soon be overtaken by Inter's Harold Bloom. So at 27 years old, at the peak of his career, will the Ballon d'Or winner move on? He will. For £173 million, he's moved to Manchester United, where he becomes an insane playmaker, racking up 23 assists in the Premier League. But it wasn't enough for the title, as Newcastle claimed the top spot. It's really interesting that he's followed his real-life career and moved to Manchester United. They also finished 9th in the Champions League phase, but managed to beat Rennes in the knockout playoff round. Then they beat Newcastle 2-1 in the round of 16, Bayern in the quarterfinals, and PSG in the semi-finals, to set up a Champions League final against rivals Manchester City, where Paul got an assist to help United win their second Champions League since their real-life win in 2008. So in all competitions, Paul ended up with 15 goals and 42 assists, apparently from over 100 games, but I think that just means mid-game he moved positions several times. But those numbers should mean he'll be on for another Ballon d'Or win. But unfortunately, he came in second place points behind Bukayo Saka, who's now a 3-time winner. Paul himself is unhappy that the club have failed to challenge for the Premier League title, as they finish way off the pace in 5th place. This time he didn't have as good of a season, with just 10 league assists. But the Champions League did go well, as Manchester United go back-to-back, this time beating Newcastle in the final where he bagged himself a goal. He's now also reached 100 caps for France at the age of 29. But they haven't challenged for any tournament since the World Cup win in 2030. And Paul is now slowly starting to decline, as his current ability has dropped to 189. It seems a little bit young to be dropping off, but sometimes it happens to players. And it still makes him the second best player in the world. But it will be interesting to see how quickly that current ability falls. In season 13, Man United are back to 2nd place, but 8 points behind Newcastle. Paul has had his least productive season since his first season at AC Milan, with just 9 goal contributions. But this is because he's been moved to a more defensive role this season, rather than playing further up the pitch as he has done so far in his Man United career. So it's very interesting that Unai Emery would change his system from a tactic that won them 2 Champions Leagues in a row, especially as this season they lost in the knockout playoff round to SK Sturm Graz from Austria. But crucially for Paul, his current ability is still at 189, so if he is dropping off, it is going to be slow. But even Paul can't help a disastrous Manchester United in season 14, as they fall to 6th place, lose in the League Cup final to rivals Manchester City, and get dumped out of the Champions League quarterfinals to RB Leipzig. Paul has 2 years left on his contract and a huge salary, so I can see him staying until he's finished and leaving on a free. But will United look to cash in on him instead? Well, it turns out to be neither, as he extends his contract by a year, which gives him the confidence to rack up 22 league goal contributions in one of his most productive seasons to date, and finish 6th in the Premier League table again. Obviously, Unai Emery had got sacked, and the new manager, Samuel Carano, who is an Italian regen, actually looks insanely good as a manager. So maybe it's the team who aren't good enough, but those players look pretty good to me. This season, United were in the Europa League, a competition Paul won in real life with Manchester United, but in game, they lost the final on penalties to Leicester City. At least they have another shot at the trophy next season. Over summer, Paul plays in what could be his last World Cup, so it's a good job he made it, as he helps guide France to win a 2nd World Cup by beating the Dutch in the final. But he can't win every final, as in season 16 he loses a 2nd Europa League final in a row, this time to Chelsea, as Pogba dropped a 6.4 clanger. Now at 33, he is starting to drop a little bit more in his current ability, but he is still obviously a world-class player, stuck in a frustrating Manchester United side who finished 6th in the table again. This feels way too much like what happened in real life. So entering the last year of his contract, he has just recorded his best average rating whilst at Manchester United, despite only making 13 goal contributions. So will he stay, leave, or extend? The answer is extend by a season. But Al Hilal in Saudi want him, and they might be the only club in the world that could match his salary. And I could see why he'd be tempted to leave, as Manchester United dropped to 10th in the table this season and have no European football. They even lose to Hoffenheim in the Europa League round of 16. But his current ability is still incredible for a 34-year-old. So what will he do? Stay loyal or look for a new challenge? Well, it turns out he values being the Manchester United captain and stays put for the time being, and has one of his best seasons at the club, helping United climb back up to 3rd in the league. But season 19 proves to be Paul's last. Despite playing a majority of the matches, at 36, he decides it's time to call it a day. Once again, United finished 3rd in the league, but failed to win any cup competitions, meaning Paul ends his 2nd career with 2 World Cups, 2 Champions Leagues, 2 Serie A's, 1 Coppa Italia, and 1 Ballon d'Or. So not actually as many trophies as he won in real life, but they're certainly more prestigious. This stat page shows just league numbers, but in all competitions, he made 825 appearances, scoring 124 goals and providing 222 assists. Had he played the same number of games in real life, he would have scored more goals but been behind his assist numbers. He also ended up collecting 163 caps for France and scoring a remarkable 49 goals, way above the 91 caps and 11 goals in real life. So I reckon he had a better career in game than he did in real life. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. And then click on this video, where we reset Neymar's career to see if he could fulfill the potential he had that I don't think he did in real life.